that being said, I want to maybe it's probably a good time for us to kick off and talk about this awesome topic that I think everybody's really excited about, and it really is really present in all the conversations that I have in my day to day, and it's also in a space right now that is, I think, I don't want to steal your thunder, John, but it's representing a paradigm shift in the industry. So we have a lot of things that are just evolving, things that are happening within our day to day as everything is changing in this environment. But we also know fundamentally there are some great things that we know that we can help our clients put themselves in the best position in this ever changing, evolving landscape. So I think that's going to be kind of the core of what we talk about today. Before I keep going on this topic, I want to first start with introduction. If y'all don't know me, recognize me, it's okay. My name is Matt Hill. I am a senior solutions consultant at Lumar, longtime player in the SEO space, worked at multiple SaaS companies, including Lumar, obviously, formerly DeepCrawl. And yeah, I work with our clients and our prospective clients in better understanding really how they can not only optimize and prioritize for issues that they find on their site, but how that they can move into different extensions of our crawler as well, looking at things such as performance, site speed, accessibility, and now, of course, when we look at GEO and how our crawler supports that. I'm going to hand it off to Rich next.
Hello, my name's Richard Barrett. I'm the Director of SEO Professional Services here at Lumar. Basically, we're strategic consultants. We jump into companies and tell them what is the most important things that they should be doing, looking at based on the crawl that we get from our crawler. And I'll keep it short since Matt did a nice introduction to Lumar and pass it over to John.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, I'm Jon Earnshaw. I'm the Chief Product Evangelist and co-founder at Pi Datametrics, which is a legendary platform that probably needs no introduction. Maybe it does, but there are more details than that at the end. I've worked in search for over 20 years, and I've been obsessed with conversational and voice search for at least the past 10 years. First talking about it on stage in Dallas like 10 years ago. So it's finally here. The conversation's arrived, and I'm so glad to be here with you guys.
We're lucky to have both of you. Before I dive into some of the bulk of the content today of the presentation, just want to talk through what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be obviously talking through some housekeeping items coming up shortly, but our agenda today is going to be discussed in the current state of search, particularly in this generative engine optimization phase. How I think all of us on the panel really think about search from the intent perspective. We're moving much beyond the specific prompt and really more talking about how to continue a conversation within each of the different models that folks like yourselves are leveraging. And of course, we know that site discovery is going to be core to understanding that, both from a technical lens and a content lens. So we're going to be talking throughout today's conversation, practical tips to really kind of give you what you need in your toolbox to be able to, again, as I mentioned at the top of the call, address GEO in this ever-changing landscape. And this isn't going to be a one-way conversation, guys. We want your questions and feedback so we can just have a back and forth, understand some of the challenges that you guys are facing in your day-to-day, and you're getting some great industry advice from folks that are working on this pretty regularly. So before I dive in, just some basic housekeeping that we like to do at the top of these calls. Please type in any questions into our Q&A box. It's going to be available at the bottom of your screen. I can see what's going on in the webinar chat. I'll try to be mindful maybe of some stuff, thinking about it as we get to the Q&A section, but just feel free to toss in whatever feedback questions. We have a marketing team that's taking advantage of all that feedback. We do have feedback as well. That's going to happen at the end of the webinar. So please just feel free. We want to make these sessions as beneficial for you as possible. If there's stuff that you like, stuff that you don't like, let us know. And lastly, we love the internet because what's on the internet stays forever, as well as this presentation will be on demand and will be shared by email in a few days if you are on the invite list. So please. Also note that we do have closed captions enabled. You can see all the directions here for enabling those closed captions in a live transcript. And as I mentioned, this will be distributed with these specific options on the recording as well. Okay. One of the things that we also like to do is just kick off the conversation today with a poll question. So I'd like to start. To what extent do you value and trust AI mode results? That should be showing up quickly in your screens. I trust it completely. I somewhat trust it. I don't trust it at all, or if I'm being honest with you, I have never used it. So I would fall into that category. But I'm curious what everybody else says. Feel free to take some time to answer the radio buttons here.
I can't wait to see these answers.
No, me either. I mean, we had an interesting discussion around this, and like Matt said, he doesn't use it, and I err on the side of not using it. Not that I've never seen it, but generally I don't really use it. But you said you use it all the time, John, don't you?
I will always use it. And I think that's because I've got so used to using ChatGPT as a daily resource and support that when I come across to Google, I'm just familiar with the conversational capability. And I feel much more at home in there. If I want to fact check something, yeah, I might dive into Google. Or I might not, but increasingly less. So increasingly less, I go for classics, more I go for the conversation.
Would you say, John, your usage of AI mode is specific to you being on the go? Or is it just when we're at your desk doing work like this? Would you have a preferential treatment for when you use it? Or is it just more of an all the time thing that you're leveraging for your search behavior now?
Generally all the time, Matt. It just saves me so much time. It saves that backwards and forwards ping pong with the blue links. And also, I'm such a huge fan of getting the job done quickly. So it's a multi-intent, long tail query that saves me having to go here and there and look for information. I want the information to come to me. I'm all for synthesization. Interesting comment.
Yeah, I was getting distracted by those. And I mean, I thought there was an interesting discussion we had in particular around why would I not use it, and why would you use it, and why would Matt not use it? And I think it's a mindset thing more than anything else. But this is all speculation from my side. I do not have research papers or anything to back this up. But I made the point that if I'm looking for something on Google, I would look for something like 2 + 2 = 4. I want to know 4 is a trustworthy answer. I don't want to know anything else. But that's not really a question people ask, right? That's not something you search in Google for, or at least I hope you don't. But what we do have is which are the best red shoes, which are the best mobile phones, all these things that do not have a necessary definitive answer. And the information around it, therefore, is more valuable. So if I'm talking about absolute accuracy, then I am not interested in AI mode for absolute accuracy.
I see a comment. I see a comment on the webinar chat that kind of resonates. It's not the point where it can be inherently trusted to be 100% accurate. So I will check it, but will always verify with other sources, is what Matt is saying. And I'd be very interested, and Matt, you don't have to answer this question, but I'd be very interested in what age group you fall into, because when we talk about search historically, we talk about those 10 blue links that in our mindset as consumers, we use to validate and understand the different sources that we're seeing. And I'd wonder, with that type of behavior, not fully trusting it, but still wanting to come back to your sources to verify that, does that speak to a legacy mindset that maybe us millennials think about when we're thinking and searching the web, that maybe some of the younger generations don't need that type of verification, validation of the content, the output? So I think that is really interesting. And yeah, I'd be curious, just in the comment section, guys, continue to kind of talk through what your thoughts are around it in general. The first topic that I spoke to from the agenda is, of course, what the current state of search is. And I think, John, you have some really good thoughts on how the evolution has really come about in this space.
Yeah, I mean, I've only got like 3 slides in this area, I think, but I mean, make no doubt about it. Behavior is changing as much as technology when it comes to search. And there was an amazing paper that was published about a month ago. And this was from a collaboration with OpenAI, Harvard, and Duke University. So it's an academic paper really looking for the first time at what 700 million strong users are doing with ChatGPT. And it turns out that the takeout from that report, which I think we're going to drop into the chat or something, the main takeout, apparently we are months away from seeing ChatGPT from mass adoption as a search tool, not as a tool to have a chat with, but as a search tool. And what's mass adoption? If you think about the innovators, early majority, late majority, we are the earlier majority. That's 20%. That's phenomenal. And for me, and Richard, you and I will argue about this until the cows come home. I think with Gen Z using ChatGPT on a daily basis, asking ChatGPT, they're not Googling anything, they're TikToking or ChatGPT. You don't use keywords when you talk to ChatGPT. You converse. And that behavior is coming to Google. Richard, I know you're going to disagree.
There's only one thing that stops me from agreeing with this entirely, and that is it's not free. So if you think about Google, you can ask as many questions as you want. You can type as much as you want into there.
Yeah.
And you can do that all day. With ChatGPT or any of the other tools, really, there's a limit. There's a point where you can no longer proceed with either something you're working on or new questions. And I hit this yesterday when I was trying to rapidly turn some information into slides. And I was basically saying, here's the information, turn it into slides for me. And about halfway through, it suddenly went, it's no longer available. You're going to have to pay if you want to carry on. And that's just the end of my work. So that's the only thing I think that caveats all this. The information and the actual action that you're taking with ChatGPT is this move forward. But there's still this cost thing, and that's not something that exists in the current search market.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally valid point. I totally get it. And meanwhile, while people are using 700 million users and Google is rushing a little to play catch up, and this is what Google said in August, AI mode, guys, ain't going away. It will become default. Well, they didn't say that, but I'll say it. It's not just a search interface. It's a paradigm shift. And what's a paradigm shift? I'm so excited. I need to stand up. Paradigm shift. Well, that's like the Industrial Revolution. That's like the digital revolution. And what happened to those who didn't shift with the paradigm? They were left behind. And we don't want to see that when it comes to search. So it's not going anywhere. We have to embrace it. And furthermore, only last week, the CEO of Google said something along the lines of search will undergo profound changes in the remainder of 2025. We got like 10 weeks left. So hold on to your hats. We're going to see profound change. And then, and talking of change, when we talk about the conversation, when we talk about content, it's all too easy to think we're just talking about words, but no, we're not. Because Google right now is making so many noises about multimodal search. You know, there are something like hundreds of millions of pictures and videos sent into Google every day looking for answers. What am I seeing here? Where can I find out? How does this work? How does this game? How do I solve this problem? So we're going to have to shift. And we have seen, and this is a Pi web radar chart, we've seen a doubling of videos, particularly short form videos, across all sectors. And even Google is now saying for the first time, guys, think voice search optimization. They've never said that before. They are really preparing us for this conversation. I mean, Richard, what's your take on the sort of content that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's things linking that have never been linked before. In fact, there's a fantastic example of a client that we work with who are very tech heavy. So very much a case of everything they do is extremely technical, really specific. And they're now exploring video options and new types of, well, structured data is a big part of theirs because essentially their information is awkward and difficult to understand. And that blocks them from being understood as part of a conversation because you kind of get this weird bitty conversation if you try to talk about it. But then you've got these abilities to put videos in, to put structured data in. That's not something they've ever considered before because literally, if you wanted to search for something for them, you'd be talking about writing in like C1729. So
Yeah.
this whole shift is incredible.
And
This
there's been
whole
a massive shift in people choosing video. I want to consume my answer. I want to consume the solution in a video short rather than reading it.
just based off of this conversation here and some of the engagement I'm seeing in the chat, it seems to me the world of LLMs is obviously a little bit more experiential compared to some of the more research-driven search experiences that we've seen in SEO in the past. People wanting and expecting, to your point, John, the capability of engaging with media that's a reflection of the input that they provided. And that input is probably not for the given time period and probably going to continue to grow to be much more of a voice-based input that also just ties into the overall theme of what we're seeing in LLMs is a conversation that's happening versus a search and find. And I think voice search is going to dovetail nicely with that. And LLMs are going to need to incorporate that more, both in terms of the input and allowing people to have focus video inputs. And then in terms of the prompt that's being returned, is it going to be multimodal? How is it going to respond to how users want to receive their outputs from LLM?
Yeah, and so accurate, Matt. And you know what? So as while we're all worried about AI and synthesization and getting in those conversations, Google has a very clear roadmap. And right now, multimodal is the focus. Step two is visualization, then it's personalization, and then it's agentic. But we're not going to talk about agents today because that's a whole different story. But there is a very clear pathway. Multimodal is a big focus, and we should all be thinking about it. And this one, really, we'll just skip past this one, but this is my fascination with how Gen Z search. Now, I teach regularly at a couple of universities, and a couple of years ago in unis, people would hide their ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT is front and center on their window. Gen Z do not use Google, or they'll do it for a fact check, but they prefer TikTok, they prefer Reddit, they prefer a YouTube short. Essentially, as you get younger, the content needs to be faster, which means first-hand, authentic, social, and trusted. And whatever we do with LLM optimization for AI, the content has to have those qualities. First-hand, authentic, social, trusted, with a layer of double eat, regardless. And
we've definitely seen that, to your point, John, around the EEAT standards being very in line with some of the more successful publishers, our clients, who are building robust writing standards, not just writing for SEO or for LLMs, but really looking at the EEAT standards, which were developed, of course, early on, 5-6 years ago, right around the time of BERT, to address a lot of the spammy content that was coming after Web 2.0. And I think it's been a good opportunity for us in our industry to build more alliance with the copywriters, with folks that have maybe seen SEO as a bit skeptical in trying to force and do tactics such as keyword stuffing or force that content into the page, but rather just really align with general good writing, how our customers, how users want to actually see content and explore on the web. So looking at things for clarity, for purpose. I mean, these are the topics that we care about. So hopefully these writing standards continue in the space of LLM and we don't start to see a regression in not so great content from that perspective. But early indications are showing that there is an overlap.
And let's hope that's the case. And I'm just looking at some of these comments. My son, 18, just consumes YouTube videos. My kids, Gen Z and Alpha, take their info from social media and only fact check with Google. Yeah, Christopher, it's sad that TikTok is a trusted source of news. Well, it's a trusted source of information to those people who use it. But yeah, let's move on.
Difficult. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because what makes TikTok worse than Google? Like, there's always been instances where Google is not an answer engine, right? You ask for something and it returns what it has. So why is that inherently worse than TikTokers who do the same thing? I will preface it by saying I'm not a social media fan. I don't go on TikTok. I'm too old for that. So yeah, there's an issue of where is this information? Who is fact checking this information? Why are people using Google for fact checking this information? But anyway, I'm going into an area that is well outside of what this talk is about. So I'll
well, let's open another rat's nest with the next one. Well, I think this next one is pretty much common sense. This, guys, is a mindset shift. Take those keywords, don't throw them away, just leave them to one side. This is what Google tells us we've got to do. And we need to listen. Optimizing for query intent and layered topic coverage. And Google says may increasingly. Forget that. 100% yes. You've got to optimize for query intent because you can't optimize for queries. Because as we move away from short tail keywords like best, I don't know, best men's blazers, as soon as we move from there to what are the best men's blazers for winter 2025 that are good for smart cash, like 18 words. You ask 100 people to reconstruct that second longer question, you'll get 100 different responses. You'll therefore get 100 different views as well. But the principle is the intent is the same, whether it's longer tail mixed or it's a multitude of short mixed intent searches. So of course, our content has to be layered. It has to be deeper and richer as we think about the possible questions somebody might ask. So keyword SEO, does it still work? Yes. Are people still doing keyword search? Not for much longer.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of query intent, I mean, this isn't a new concept. You know, we've been talking about informational, transactional, navigational searches for as long as I can remember. And that's been something that I think SEO has been trying to tap into for years. But with the advancement of the different types of conversations that are had across different devices, across this multimodal environment we're talking about, I think those three breakdowns of intent are not sufficient enough, right? And this is something that we do at Lumar as we've evolved on our content evaluation to understand how your content is primed for LLMs, and not only being able to understand the different nuances of intent, but leveraging your first party GSC query data to then transform that into ideal prompts to help make sense of a lot of the prompts that are out there and the myriad of different prompts that could happen. We help our clients using that first party data. I'd be curious what other keyword laden strategies you guys are seeing, how else we can use this, the original keyword workflows that we have into this new world of LLM content optimization.
Cool. This slide suddenly appeared in front of my eyes, and I didn't even know it was in this position. But anyway, you just mentioned, Matt, you know, informational, navigational, transactional. We need to get rid of that. We need to start thinking about intent differently. And you can't attach intent to a keyword. Intent was always in the mind of the searcher and inherent in the content. So here, as we forget our keywords, and this is a shot from Pi where we're actually looking at ChatGPT conversations. So now we're asking the question, not am I visible, but which brands have the loudest voice across different conversations? Which brands are the most cited within the conversation as well? So it's just a shift in mindset. Lose the obsession with keywords, but keywords are still, or the value of keywords, as something that we can use as currency to measure the value of conversations. So let's quickly shift on to the next one, and this one here. So in this view, we can see tech radar as the solid line, and there's a faded dotted line beneath that. And that the reason for that is in this particular conversation, tech radar outperforms everybody from a citation perspective. And what we can do here is like drill down to see whereabouts on their site those citations are coming from, so we can start to understand how well is your site constructed. Because I'm sure, Richard, you will agree, to be discovered by LLMs, to be synthesized, you've got to get your structure right. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. there's two ways of looking at it. One is, are you doing enough to even be able to play the game? Are you invited to the table? And then the other one is, what are you leaving on the table? So what I mean by that is, if your site can't be discovered, it can't be indexed, it can't be used by LLMs. Basically, if pages aren't there, they're not going to show up in the LLM. You're not part of the conversation. But there's also the opportunity, and I'll come on to it a bit later, where if you're talking about a new thing, a new product you've announced, or maybe something exciting that's grabbed people's attention, well, how does that link into the rest of your content? How does it fit into the conversation? And yeah, we'll be seeing conversation a heck of a lot, I think, in the rest of this presentation.
Because it is. It's no longer a page that we optimize for a keyword. We optimize our content.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Richard, when you were talking about that idea of being invited to the table, are you speaking specifically to the idea of being chosen as a candidate for an LLM training model? Or are we just talking more about some of the technical impediments even before that would allow you to even get to that step?
Yeah, it's very much the technical impediments before that. Let's take a really broad example. If you use your robots.txt and you block a bunch of pages, it's going to be blocked. So how would you ever get into that conversation? The page doesn't work, and when the bot crawls it, how are you ever going to get into that conversation? These are the fundamentals that are never going to change, because they're fundamentals. They're almost apart from SEO. They're apart from LLMs. Everything apart from this. These are just things that you need to do to make sure your website works properly. And if you do not have those, you cannot build anything on top of them.
Absolutely.
And this was my slide that I snuck in here. So going back to intent, you can predict it, and you can use keyword research to inform it and all this other stuff, but you cannot predict what happened in the interaction and ideas that have led up to the moment of that intent. And what I mean by this is to use Jon's perfect example of, what was it, smart casual blazers?
Yeah.
So prior to that, maybe I've never heard of smart casual blazers, and there's a strong chance, based on, as you can see, my style, there's a strong chance I never have. But before that, I may have asked, what would be a smart thing to wear at a party, something like that. And the LLM may have led me down that route. There's absolutely no way that we can predict what conversation happened prior to that, because we cannot know all these individual pieces. But the intent is, I want to purchase something that fits this mold. So we can sort of move through that intent. And exactly as you were saying before, Jon, this is where we can operate. We can put ourselves into the conversation to be part of this. I don't know if you've got any additional thoughts on that, Jon.
I know. I'm just reading these comments as you're talking. Such great comments, guys. And we're going to have to answer some of these later. But no, I agree entirely. But as you talked about, we don't know the intent that led up to that. You started to reveal one of the biggest elephants in the room that we're going to talk about in that next stage of this conversation about the conversation. So yeah, let's get into this conversation now. I always talk about the conversation, and I'm famous for standing up on stage, starting so many talks with the following. Every digital interaction that should be a conversation will become one. That includes search. That is here. And for anyone that doesn't believe it's now a conversation, just look at this. Average queries in LLM prompts, 23 words. Okay, I'll give you 3 words. Best men's blazers. Yep. I'll give you 23 words. What are the best men's blazers for this winter 2025 that aren't too expensive and I can wear smart and casual? That's about 23.
I was going to say, can we get a fact check? Is that definitely 23?
Is there or there? Yeah, within 1 or 2 words. But it is. That's mixed intent, multi-intent. That leads to nothing but a conversation. So therefore, if everybody's moved away from keywords, okay, give everyone a few more weeks. More than 70% of questions are unique. So you can't optimize for questions. Cannot optimize for questions. So it's okay to use synthetic questions when you are trying to gauge your performance, because the synthetic question can have the same intent as a real question. And as people are using these LLMs, It's no longer question and answer. And Google's Prabhakar Raghavan said that. It's no longer a keyword game. It's a journey of exploration and discovery. And this is something that Google said that is so important. Structured content, yeah. What does structure mean? Structure with schema, yeah. Structure for synthesization, yes. Cut the fluff out, be accurate, answer questions, and be fast, first-hand, authentic, social, and trusted. So you structure your content. But if somebody comes and asks a question and you're optimized for that, well structured, well done. But if that person has follow-up questions and you have failed to think about that and prepare and answer those, you may turn up for none of the conversation. As simple as that. You've got to prepare for conversations. We have to anticipate the next turn and the one after that with an average of 4 turns per conversation.
So it almost sounds like when we talk about building the page structure and we think about the inverted pyramid style that we think about just from a journalistic perspective and an SEO perspective, you think about having an H1, of course, that defines or in some way captures the intended concept of the page. But all of the associated subheaders that sit below not only need to support that main intended concept, but talk about some of the different types of questions, the variants that may come from the intended concept as well, to really help continue that conversation, to help push your content as the most comprehensive, and of course, to be leveraged within these training models.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you guys, yeah, go ahead, John, sorry.
I was just going to say, just on this one. So if you're lucky enough to be in the US, sorry, on the next slide, Matt. If you're lucky enough to be in the US, so Google's saying you need to predict the next questions. They've told us that. You've got to shape your content. That doesn't mean you stuff it all on one page. No, but you just make sure your pages are connected together as part of what might be a conversation. So if you're in the US, Google actually gives you the conversation pills. They've come back now pretty much all of the time. So you can actually see the initial query, see the response, and see these. And off the back of those, you can build more synthetic questions. And it's important, it's so important that we don't just look in ChatGPT or Google AI Mode or AI Overview and say, yes, I'm in it, or no, I'm not, because that doesn't count. It doesn't even matter. What matters is your content turning up at the next question and the next one and the next one. The winners are not those who appear at the start of the conversation, but those who endure all the way to the end, to conversion, to whatever a success it is. And that's a game changer. And there are other ways to extract these synthetic prompts. But if anyone wants to know that, we can talk about that another time, or just drop a question and we'll get back to you. So, gosh.
Talk about some practical tips. I mean, of course, we're talking about a lot of different topics here: structured page data, multimodal search, the importance of keywords, yes or no, and how that's evolving. A lot of this is new for maybe some of the folks on the call, maybe even some of the people that they work with in their day-to-day. What are some of the practical tips we need to think about for approaching this space? What are the things that we need to think about at the top of mind for everybody?
Just a word of warning to anyone who gets a knock on the door, they open it, and somebody comes in and says, I can help you with your GEO, your AIO, your whatever it is. Stop. You've got to get the basics right, because the underlying indexing, ranking, quality signals still apply to the query fan out. That's going to be bringing the data back. So unless you have got your doubly dialed, especially the authors, guys, especially the authors, experience, expertise, authority, and trust signals from the content creators to differentiate from that generic vanilla AI that is everywhere and is going to get tanked very soon. So I'd say structure for synthesization. So cut the fluff. And I saw somebody, I think it's Joseph mentioned, yeah, cut the fluff. Answer the questions. Chunk your content neatly. Look to see what's working right now. Get to the point. Think about intent over keywords. Keywords you can use for currency. Think about where your searcher will go next on their journey and meet them there with relevant content. It sounds simple, and it should be simple, but you've got to get the basics right.
Yeah, that's massive. Got to get the basics right. Let's
Yeah.
just keep saying it over and over again.
Because we said it so much earlier. It's true.
Indeed, indeed.
You can do all the GEO you want. You can sprinkle it in gold and wave a magic wand. Without double E, it ain't going to work. And as a mindset, I print this out and put it on my fridge. And just to remind myself, we are no longer optimizing pages for keywords like we did last year or the year before or as recently as last month. How many times, Richard, does somebody say to you, what shall I optimize this page for?
Indeed, yes. It's still the most common question especially when we start a project.
Yeah.
What should we optimize? What you should optimize for is intent.
Yeah, we say, no, don't. We're optimizing your content wherever it exists in your ecosystem to surface in conversations wherever they happen. Yeah, that could be in Google. It could be in AI mode. It could be in AI overview. It could be in ChatGPT, wherever. But that's what we're doing. We're getting in the mind of customers. We're giving the answers they need in the format they want, whether it's multimodal or whatever, in the surface where they are looking. It doesn't matter what that surface is. And yes, you can still use the value of those keywords to measure the value of conversations, and that's still important. And I noticed somebody in the chat, I think it was Joseph, said he doesn't do keyword research anymore. And you know what? The only reason I do it is to try and work out what's this conversation or this collective of conversations worth to the business.
Indeed, and there's still an understanding in the keyword of like what did that person even, what topic is that person even thinking about? There's still something there. It's just you wouldn't optimize for like red blazer as you say, because that's not how people. Nobody's going into Google now. Well, probably a handful of people, but virtually nobody's going to Google now and typing red blazer and then going to ChatGPT and typing red blazer, because ChatGPT will be like, well, what do you want to do with a red blazer? Tell me what you need for the next step of the conversation.
In this space right now, guys, where we know that the click is not what it once was, that click-through traffic, particularly in LLMs, because of the conversations that's happening, the immediate answer engines that are being delivered, some of these KPIs that we've historically talked about, whether it was bounce rate, CTR, the conversion points, they're changing. They're changing across what SEOs and GEO experts can actually action on. But it's also still top of mind for a lot of them because there is the question around ROI. And so, of course, when we look at this key consideration slide, are these the same questions that we need to be asking ourselves? Are there things that we should be thinking about in addition to this when we talk about the eventual dying of the click? Or do you guys agree with that thought process?
One thing I'd love to add, sorry, just a very quick one is, for me, again, it's that getting people away from looking at the first prompt and I'm in it or I'm not, and making decisions based on that, on one prompt. Forget the one prompt, step back, think about the bigger conversation. How do I perform in that conversation? Remembering that it's multi-turn. So building out a conversational presence index. How long do I stay there? It's no longer important just to get to that first stage. For the first time, we move past page one into the conversation.
Indeed, it's almost like we're being on page one. If we take it as an allegory for an LLM, being on page one is just the beginning of the whole thing. And then you want to also be on page two and be on page three and be on. That's kind of the way of thinking about it. Of course, ranking doesn't work the same in an LLM, as there's follow-up queries and things like that. So this slide in particular is essentially boils down to one thing I wanted to hammer home in this, and it's mostly because of the time of year that I really want to hammer this home. But internal linking, I want you to think about internal linking. Why does it matter for LLMs? It is literally how they discover stuff. Same as Google. They crawl your page, they find the links, they make a big list, they go through it. If it's not there, they're not going to find it. But it's also your opportunity to link topics together and build that conversation from your existing site content. So what I want to sort of think about here is how many clicks does it take to get to your content? So if it's from your homepage, how many clicks does it take to get to this piece of content that you really want to promote or you really want to put in the conversation? And then think about conversion. How many clicks does it take to get to an effective conversion that is why your site exists? Your site exists to make money. How that happens is a conversion. It's different for all sites. But how many clicks does it take to get to that point? And then if you want to actually ask why, which I always want to ask why do bots care about this? Because users care about this. They would completely ignore this if users didn't care that if it took them 6 clicks to get to a page instead of 4 clicks, they would leave the site more often. I mean, sometimes people will hang around forever, but the more clicks it takes to get to an action that they want to perform, the fewer people are going to get there. So that's I really want to hammer home internal linking because of the time of year. People are going to start flooding their sites with Black Friday, with Christmas, with Halloween, with sale, with this, that. It's the golden quarter after all for e-commerce in particular. But yeah.
And on that note, I totally agree. Links, double it and raise it and more links and link the conversation together in your content. And Black Friday, I saw so many people last year making the same mistakes using outmoded techniques like just changing the URL, every single day, forwarding it on to the next one, and just putting too much content into their ecosystem, causing confusion. It's all so similar and so kind of almost the same, but not, and literally seeing visibility plummet in that build up when it should be going this way with fast content, smart content, authentic, social, and trusted content.
So
Indeed.
what I'm hearing a little bit is, of course, we have to have our page structure in a good place that doesn't just speak to an intended concept, answers some of the additional questions that come below that. At the same time, you only have so much room on the page, and people are expecting and don't have time to read some of the long form articles that maybe we historically have prioritized in our SEO space. So there is a world via internal links where I could see, not that we're just creating content for the sake of creating content and linking it back to an intended concept, but making sure that we're smart and intentional with our related topics that help answer sub questions that speak to that intended concept. It sounds that we have a method through internal linking to still be able to do that LLMs will still be able to pick up if employed effectively, I guess.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, it's something you have complete control over. You can have, well, let's use Black Friday. You've got a promotion on the trends of 2025. Well, there are other pages on your website. Well, hopefully there's other pages on your website that deal with popular trends or popular products or things that are very important to people's purchasing journey. Well, those should be part of the conversation on the next step. So here is the 2025 most popular, I don't know, kids' toys or blazers. I want to stick with the blazers example now. John's introduced it. Well, that was 2025's trend. But as we move on further down into next year, etc., were you wanting to be part of the conversation? Because Black Friday is going to end. People are no longer going to be talking about Black Friday, except maybe for historical reasons. But they may still be interested in blazers. So where does the next piece of the conversation lead further on? And this is on the next slide, Matt, where I've drawn a wonderful seasonal drawing. I don't know why the marketing team keeps letting me do this, but until I get fired, I'll have to keep doing it. What I want to sort of go through here is Christmas, it turns out, is not just for Christmas. If you reinvest your content, it helps to increase long-term impacts. And what I mean by this is you've created a Christmas page with, as I said before, the top 2025 trends, let's say. Well, what other pages on your website are dealing with trends or dealing with product promotions, anything around that? How do you reinvest that? Well, you can just redirect, but it's not great, right? It's a short-term sort of thing of, okay, we've got a load of links maybe to this page and it's been promoted. You can redirect and preserve some of that. It takes about a year for everything to fully move across as a minimum. Or you can break the page into this conversation. Here is what the top trends are. Maybe you want to see what the trends were in 2024. That'll give you some gift ideas. Well, now we're talking about gift ideas. Well, what were last year's gift ideas? What's next year's gift ideas? You've got this conversation built into what people might be asking. I know when I go looking for presents for people, it's not always the latest stuff that I find that is going to be useful to me. So I might go, what is the most popular gift last year? And that might give me more ideas. Give me gift ideas. Give me something for my mum, for my dad. All these things that need to build together to form an idea of where you want to go. And you can control that sort of stuff just from this one page. You can link to the page and say gift ideas for dad. And then on the gift ideas for dad page, list out the conversation that you want to provide. These are gift ideas for technological dads, for example. Very, very niche example I'm going down here, and I'm certainly not the route I'm going to be going. But yeah, sorry.
Good example, though. No, it's a good example. And I would say, having optimized gift ideas for so many years, you know, everything you said there, 1000%. Yeah. And don't forget, guys, you got to double down on reviews, guidelines, again, helpful content, double eat. None of it will happen without that. And I'm sorry to say it, but double eat is going to be more important than it ever was, particularly the authors, because that's authors are being switched out and replaced by vanilla AI fluff. Google's not going to like that much longer.
Richard, I love the metaphor that you created here of the Christmas tree with the box of lights that can be repurposed because they provided joy in one year. There's no reason why we can't showcase those lights again and have the same level of impact that we had the previous year. My only question is, what about those people that leave their Christmas lights up all year long? Is that is that a whole different?
Well, they see this. Actually, it's a really good question. I love the metaphor, which, by the way, that was not intentional whatsoever. I just drew a bot with a Christmas tree. But it's a really interesting thing because LLMs in particular, but Google, I mean, I keep saying LLMs here, but Google does exactly the same thing. It loves fresh content. LLMs have to bias recent content. Otherwise, the half-life of facts would result in them just spitting out complete nonsense. Within a few years, they'd just be all rubbish. In fact, it probably wouldn't even take that long because it's ingested lots of old content already. It has to prioritize fresher content in order for it to even be relevant. And because it does that, if you leave something like a Christmas page up and it's just dwindling along at 2025, but we're now well into 2026, you're not going to perform in the conversation because it knows that that's an old conversation. We don't need to have the same conversation, essentially.
Joseph just said you can get fresh content just by refreshing it. But we can argue what a refresh is some other time.
Well, there is one thing I will say about refreshing content, and that's if you basically just change the date on a page, they'll probably just ignore it. There's a number of bytes that needs to change on a page for a bot to reprocess it. And if you don't change enough, it just will not reprocess it. And this is all about saving budget on the server side and things like this. Google actually wants to crawl less pages, probably because it crawls billions and billions of pages every single day, or trillions probably more likely. And that's expensive. So keep in mind that if you just change like a date, that's just not going to be enough. If you just change a date to 2026, it's not even going to reprocess the page.
It has to be proper new content that's meaningful, or Google SIM hash, which will compare previous and new, will rule it out.
Indeed. Yeah. If you do enough to change the page significantly, then yeah, sure, you've refreshed the content. It's useful. It's never been my favorite approach, but there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I like historical data. I like to look back and see what was.
Absolutely. I got a little ahead of myself on this next slide here, but this is the point of the conversation where I would talk about how everybody featured on this call here works for two awesome SEO platforms here. One in Lumar, as you know, if you're familiar with our brand, providing that deep technical health knowledge and some of the things that Richard was talking about around the basics of foundational technical SEO, just website architecture, are going to align with what LLMs care about. If bots can't even access your content, well, this is going to be the first impediment in being accepted for that training models. And then, of course, Pi Datametrics, understanding content and enriching your content, keeping track of all the different trends that are happening, not just in search, but across different LLMs, to really be able to help establish where your share of voice is in the market. We have just two powerful tools here that we would encourage everyone on the call to be able just to understand and really lean into for your LLM optimization. Now, I want to just ask to that point, just one second poll question before we dive into some of the Q&A around some of the topics that have been discussed today. If you guys would like a demo of either Lumar or Pi Datametrics, feel free just to pop us in the chat. We're gonna, of course, have our marketing take advantage of all that data and reach out to you in a manner whenever you guys are ready for that demo. We'd love to be able to support you and provide you more information around the awesome features that both products offer. With that said, while you guys are wrapping up poll question number 2, probably should make sense here to tie into some questions that I've seen in the chat that I think people definitely would like to have answered. So one of the things that I did see before was around how different LLMs are actually accessing your robots.txt and sitemaps. Is in fact the different LLMs that we're talking about outside of the Google, are they actually accessing those file types of the TXT and the sitemaps? I'll open that to either of you guys.
That's definitely a Richard, I reckon.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean there. How, as in how they're accessing them directly? They view
yes
your domain. They go to robots.txt.
I have the actual question from Angie here, so apologize for me paraphrasing.
No,
do we know if non-Google LLMs are using robots.txt and XML sitemaps? Are they actually just using those files at all as part of their training set? That
is a loaded question in a way, because yes, they are, but they're also not. So it's a weird one. If you block things with robots.txt, you can absolutely block LLMs, but they can also ignore it and have been known to ignore it. So ChatGPT is the example I've used because I've done this myself. For the broad strokes of the bot, it will not crawl your site and ingest your content. However, by using a direct fetch, we were able to get it to fetch the content of the page and ingest it anyway. So it pretty much just ignored the robots.txt. I think the issue you've got is if you're trying to use robots.txt to control what is and isn't in an LLM, you kind of trying to lock the door after the horse is bolted, or lock the gate after the horse is bolted. It occurs to me I probably shouldn't use so many idioms, given that we have international people on this, and my understanding of Spanish idioms is not great. So yeah, essentially, it's already happened. If you're trying to block with robots.txt, it's probably not going to work very well. It'll maybe just result in you kind of having half appearing in the conversations. In terms of sitemaps, off the top of my head, I don't actually remember. I don't remember if they process via sitemaps. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Follow-up question to this. Oh, sorry, John, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was just gonna. I saw another question I fancied having a go at.
Feel free to read it off and give it an answer.
Chiefly because I love this person's name, Cleaton Gums. What a wonderful name. So Cleaton says, so to make it to the end of the conversation, as you explained, John, how does this show up on our websites? Through a separate blog post for each step down question, an FAQ? That's such a great question. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were in marketing, the content. They make these very wonderful marketing pages that look beautiful. Don't do a lot of it, but they look beautiful. I said, well, that's not going to get you very far in the conversation. What if somebody asks X, Y, and Z? So then we started thinking about, well, we do have some content that might cover that off, but it's over here. Currently, these pages are not connected. As Rich says, get those pages linked together and make it clear contextually in and around the link that what they're going to find when they go to this page. So God forbid, no clicks here or read more or anything like that. But no, if you want to find out how this works in this situation, we've got it dialed here. And then maybe you can have FAQs on that page as well. It does not have to be on one page. These LLMs are great at crawling, as Rich has already said. Just make sure you connect relevant content together if you think it's going to be part of a natural conversation, because we've got to stop thinking about pages now and start thinking about content and surfacing.
Speaking of content, another question that I wanted to roll up here, and we talk about this a lot at Lumar, is the importance of schema markup in this world of GEO. How important is it? We know that, of course, within the lens of Google, it's been important for a while now, and that's going to, of course, translate into AI mode in the SGE experience. But what are we seeing? Do you think it has any weight across other LLMs that we're talking about, whether it's OpenAI based, Perplexity? What are you guys seeing in terms of structured data and how important it is moving forward in terms of setting the content that we actually want LLMs to understand about our pages?
Richard, that's you. That's you.
I was
You're
going to say,
built
do you
of
want to go first?
schema. You're made out of schema.
Structured data. Oh, every other day I see a different report on this. I can only go off what I have tested myself, and that is that structured data is a way to enrich the conversation. I'll give you an example. We have a product, might be a very complicated product, and within it we have the name of the product, of course, the price of the product. Maybe it's available at a bulk purchase sort of thing. Maybe it's got multiple variations that are very similar but have slightly different things. If you put those all into a single block of text, the LLM will try to interpret it and it will come out with something. Maybe it'll just regurgitate the whole thing. If you put that in structured data, it will split the sections up. It will go, this is the name, this is the price. Here you go. Here is the description that is associated with it. And here is maybe the interpretation. So if you put structured data there, you can create a better result, a better conversational response effectively. And that's the only part that it affects. It doesn't suddenly result in, I want to use the word ranking, but it's the wrong word, but it doesn't result in better ranking, more likely to appear in a conversation, unless it fixes problems with your chunking, because structured data has a start and it has an end, and it's a pretty clear start and an end. So if that is fully consumed, then the whole of your topic, the whole of your intent, or intent's again the wrong word, the whole of the product on there is consumed and therefore is ingested as a single thing. So there's no confusion. It doesn't cut off midway through or anything like that. Better visibility, Joseph. I'm not sure if I would use better visibility as the word there. I would say better vision. I'm trying to think of the word. Better understanding. Thank you, John. That is perfect. Better understanding of what is on the page.
Which might lead to better visibility.
Exactly. And better conversations.
Yeah.
All right. I know we have a lot of great questions here. I could keep going, but I think we are at a stopping point here, unless we want to have any final notes between John and Richard that you guys just want to sneak in here before I close out.
I would say, if we haven't answered your question, reach out to us. Reach out to us. Track us down. I will always get back eventually. Unless it's a really exciting question, I'll get back immediately. So yeah, reach out to us.
Yeah. Find us on LinkedIn, email, whatever it is. More than happy to have more conversations. And if you ask a question I don't know the answer to, let's look into it. Let's do some research. Let's try some things. It's an incredibly exciting time if you've got the ability to test things, because you could discover something that nobody else has found yet. Maybe a quirk of the bot. Maybe it's a new way of looking at the data. These are opportunities right now.
And I was going to say, finally from me, Richard and myself are both at Brighton SEO next Thursday, if anyone else is around.
Absolutely. And if you want to draw something terrible, bring a pen.
Guys, thank you so much. Thanks everybody on the webinar. All the feedback and engagement was excellent. I think I may have saw someone comment, this is the best webinar they've been to in all of 2025, which I love that feedback. Marketing is especially going to love that feedback. That's great. And yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us following the conversation. Let's keep it going, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your time today.
Thank you very much.